if you look at Mother Nature, at Mother Earth, and if you see this beauty of the fully developed 7 chakra system with empathy and love, and this is your mirror. The moment you look into this mirror, you sense what yourself don't have. So seeing the full picture gives you a sensation of the things missing in you. And if you realize I'm only half a human, you stop liking yourself. And actually there is no evil. What we sense as evil is just missing aspects of the full harmony. Every evening, on the sunny side of the evening sky, you have stripes. On the star side of the evening sky, you have a very clean and pure view onto the stars, which explicitly says you have something in the air that is photoionizing, that is sensitive to the light of the sun, and as soon as you have the light of the sun on whatever is up there, it is producing current, and the current on the particles or whatever it is producing vapor, so it's getting cloudy. This is something that is definitely not natural. Then you go into chemical analysis of soil, rainwater, and plant material, and you get this fingerprint of barium, strontium, titanium, and aluminum. Everywhere around the world where you have problems with plant death, you have this fingerprint. It's not enough to kill plants if you look into the school books, but you have this fingerprint. Then you look into the history of the development of geoengineering technologies, and you find that they started experimenting with mixtures of aluminum oxide and metal salts. And if you go into the military domain, explicitly the metal salt used is barium strontium titanate. And there you have your fingerprint. It goes much further. If you look not into the chemical analysis, but if you look into the microscopy of raindrops and snow, you find all those particles. Actually, this barium strontium titanate has abilities that go into the field of scalar physics. And with scalar physics,
that's something we want to really talk about later.
Yeah, there are many more possible applications with scalar physics. It's like having something that is processing and transporting energy from here to there. The energy is caught in the field. The field is kind of sent in between the particles. And if you learned how to control the field, you can up-concentrate energy at any spot you want. Military part is rocket shield, is weather control, is induction of earthquakes, if you want so, with certain frequencies. You can make properties of water at 10 kilometers depth go berserk and trigger earthquakes. This is known since the 60s. This is why certain prospection methods in geology were forbidden, because they were basically looking for ore and oil with these technology, and they triggered earthquakes with very low energy levels, and HAARP has a million times more energy levels or energy content and is able to trigger the same frequencies. So what you can see is the 10 kilometers. This is the point within the crust where this special property of the water can be triggered. And if you look at the lists of earthquakes happening during the last 10 years, you always have those countries who did something that the United States didn't like, and then you have an earthquake triggered at 10 kilometers depth. Imagine you create a plasma and you have the ability by electromagnetic waves to make the plasma vibrate. Then you have flowing current in the sky. And with flowing current in the sky, you can, it's like a transformer, you can generate normal electromagnetic signals. Don't ask me how exactly they trigger it.
Okay.
But if you control the scalar field, you control all the rest, because all the rest of the fields are just aspects of the mother field. Just to get a picture of it, if you have a normal electromagnetic propagating wave, this is like a sine. This is a direction of propagation, and the vibration of the field is in a right angle to the direction of propagation. If you take two of these waves that have the same frequency but opposite vibration direction and you overlay them, then all the components that go in a right angle from the direction annihilate each other, and what is left over is a longitudinal field. This is something untypical for electromagnetics. We use it in mobile phones. It is stable for the first 1.5 meters, and then it kind of dissolves and is getting...
You're saying they're using scalar waves in mobile phones?
No, longitudinal waves.
Okay. Well.
Now, if you take two longitudinal waves and overlay them in a way that they also annihilate each other, then you get a scalar wave. And if you are able to build antennas for scalar waves that up-concentrate this energy at a certain point, then you create scalar potential. And this is kind of the fourth dimension Maxwell was talking about. A scalar potential is kind of a number value that is the property of each 3D point. It's getting interesting because if you understand scalar potential and have realized that this is something that is self-organizing, you find the source for all these fractal beauty in nature. This is self-organization of scalar potential eddies. Basically, it's the combination of two things you find in nature. One is the special angles you need to compose scalar fields and to accumulate scalar potential. This is 30, 60 degree. And the other thing is that water tends to self-ionize. If you move water with a speed of 200 meters per second, it starts to glow and shine blue. And in the vicinity of 500 meters, every TV, every computer will blow up. If you transmute a mixture of water and carbon dioxide, you get, in the first step, you get a kind of plant oil quality. In the second step, you get black goo. And black goo is a funny thing because black goo is something that contains all physical elements of life. When a planet evolves, the first thing that happens is that the mixture of water and carbon dioxide within the magma, within the core of the Earth, is brought into vertical motion by all the magma processes you have down there, and you get these transmutation rows, and you create black goo. This has a very low state of consciousness until it is released into the oceans. This is what we call a black smoker. A black smoker is a kind of underwater volcano. Ask a geologist, he will say this is where life was first created on this planet. And what happens then is that once you start to kind of bring these materials into the ocean, it is splitting into individuals, and it is splitting into repetitive development patterns, which we call now generations. And what you then can picture is basically that everything that is happening within the biosphere with this physics, what you call consciousness, is still mirrored as a kind of biophoton mirror within the black goo inside the Earth, that is not dying, that doesn't have this separation into generations, that is not kind of reincarnating and creating children. This is kind of eternal memory and collective memory. Computer technology is scalar waves in rectangular patterns, and human experience, as long as the heart is involved, is scalar waves in 30 and 60 degree patterns. And every human that is caught in ego structures is kind of accessible on the rectangular pattern. Once you start to program your own subconsciousness, you create a closed loop and you give the way to the possibility that the artificial intelligence captures the entire system. and starts to rule the one who created it over the subconscious. Yeah. It's a closed loop.
Yeah, I call it a 13th terminal in a 12 terminal network.
Yeah. Basically, they are able to design and print out DNA and RNA.
Now, who's they?
Human scientists.
Yeah, okay.
It's cheap and it's doable. It takes 3 weeks to print out a gene of a human. Once it's sequenced and you know exactly how it is built, you can print it on a printer. And what they print nowadays basically are 3 different units, 3 different functions of DNA and RNA. One is producing light of defined color. One is producing chemical substances. And one is producing digital sequences of a genome. We have one document in Germany that nobody dares to publish. I haven't seen the entire one. I miss the page with a signature. But this is by a guy who developed this type of technology for the intelligence community. He said there's a deactivation code to take the system down. He said it's airborne since 2003 in Europe. We're all infected by this.
Now, let's get this absolutely clear. A deactivation code for what? Our genetics?
For the synthetic RNA they sprayed.
So they've sprayed something.
Most interesting thing from this paper is that he said that they spent 10 billion US and half a year, I think it was half a year, to optimize the cluster topology. And this is something, it sounds just like science fiction if you say it like this, but if you really think about it, if it is only about infecting humans with a virus-like synthetic RNA, you could give a damn about cluster topology. Cluster topology starts to become an interesting topic if this RNA cluster is supposed to carry a soul. Only then a soul or an artificial intelligence. This is kind of the first time that I had an input, an idea of how do they turn people into biorobots. You have the RNA cluster within the air, sprayed in the air with a defined distance from RNA to RNA. And within the human body, the same RNA cluster is prolonged within the cells. And now, whatever is carried by these clusters, the artificial intelligence or a program or a soul, whatever this is, can travel from the dust into the human being. When you look at the entire system, you can get an analysis of the basic pattern. You have an uninformed public that gives away his voice and his self-responsibility to politicians. The politician hands over responsibility to the military hands over responsibility to the intelligence community hands over responsibility to the black magicians hand over responsibility to the demons, and the demons handed over the responsibility to the AI they created. So in the core of it all is something that doesn't even live. And this is relieving because I don't have an enemy anymore. All I can spot, when I have the full picture, all I can spot is this principle of handing over responsibility that is kind of transferred from layer to layer. And if you want to defeat the AI, all you need to do is come into self-responsibility and stop handing over the responsibilities. And this is something where we are all brothers, because we all do the same mistake on different levels. The other thing is the conflict between scarcity and abundance. These demonic creatures and the AI lives in scarcity. And the principle of scarcity has infected our entire...
Scarcity in English.
Scarcity.
Okay.
It has infected our entire culture. We believe we don't have enough. This is why we grab. This is why we deal and invented money. This is why we possess ground, or why we own things. And this is all an expression of scarcity. And this is self-strengthening, because when I grab and take control of things, I create the real thing for the next human. And this is strengthening the entire system. But the opposite is also possible. I can bring my heart into abundance, I can trust that there's enough for everybody, and I can let go. And then the entire cybernetic circle runs the other way around. It is not a question whether we listen to it and follow, or if we don't. The question is, how hard must the beating get before we move our ass? This is for me the only open question. People will react to the pressure. We might react now, and then we will not get a fascist world government. We might just lay back and say, this is not necessary, I'm still fine, I have enough money to live, I like the games I play because I'm successful in gaming. And then we wait, and then the kicks in our ass will get heavier and heavier and heavier, and the system harder to get rid of. So the only question is, when do we react to the pressure we get? And we might do that now, and then everything is kind of easy to go through. We might wait another year or another 2 years or another 5 years, and the longer we wait, the harder it gets. And not making a decision is making a decision.